Batman The Dark Knight number 13, written by Greg Hurwitz, art by David Finch. This is just an extended deep dive into Batman psychology. Like, if you took a college class on, like, psychology of superhero comics and you had to write a thesis paper, this is just it. It's just so wordy, and it's just, anyway. So we open up. Scarecrow is still like torturing that little girl that he kidnapped, and she's like, "Hey, Mr. Scarecrow, could you let me out? I made this for you. Please let me out." And she passes a picture under the door of Scarecrow and her like stick figures holding hand underneath like a smiley face sun, and he's like, "Ah, kid, you're making this so hard for me to do my thing." So then we see him flashing back to when his father trapped him down in the cellar to make him fear things. And it's like down in the cellar is just a menagerie of horrifying objects, from demons to skeletons to what seem to be actual corpses. And then because Batman was captured in the previous issue, he wakes up and he's like, "Activate wrist armor laser," and he burns his way out of where he's being held. Then he makes his way down a hallway, is attacked by a Scarecrow with a scythe, who literally just chops open his entire thorax. And then Batman's trying to crawl into a little bit of sunlight. He can't make it, and he dies. And then, of course, it turns out, oh, this is all just fear toxin. Like, it was all just a hallucination. And Scarecrow's like, "Here's the deal, Batman. I've got new fear toxin that's so super potent, it would actually infect me. Like, I would be messed up by it. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and put on this gas mask, and we're going to try it on you." And then we just get an extended thing of a guy named Braxton Winthrop, who was apparently possibly a real person in the DC universe, possibly entirely fictional in both. I don't know. But regardless, Braxton Winthrop, he was a millionaire who ran this whole big enterprise thing, but he like walked the walk and did the talk. Like he actually went into soup kitchens and helped people. He donated God knows how much money. He like helped people like just by donating and being there and being a good person. It's like he walked in the light, and he had the same sort of tragedy in his past. His parents, they died when he was young in a plane accident. He inherited the fortune, but it was made via like small arms, like they sold rifles, and he sold the business, used that money to get into a better business of philanthropy, and then, he just became a better person. And the whole thing is he's just like, "So what's your excuse, Batman? You literally had the exact same sort of thing, but like you just chose the dark. You actively always choose the dark." And he's like, "No, shut up. I didn't choose the dark. I had the light taken from me." He's like, "No, you didn't. You purposely like stop seeing people. Like you always have a girlfriend but never a wife. You have your like wards, but you never adopt them as your son. And even your real son, like you refuse to recognize him in public." And Batman this whole time's like, "You can't know this. You don't know any of this. You don't know who I am under the mask. How? No, you can't. You don't know any of this. So shut up. Stop talking." And Scarecrow's like, "What are you talking? I haven't said a word. You've just been talking to yourself." And then it just keeps on going, where it's just like, when you're dead, no one's going to mourn you. You have completely shut yourself off. You will have nothing once you're gone, Batman. And he's genuine. Like, this is all his own fears that he's himself posing on himself. So yeah, it's a whole thing. And then Batman, after a while, he's just like, "Scarecrow, you suck so much. How did you even end up this bad?" And we get one last thing of, he was thrown down in the cellar by his dad. His dad's taking some readings of like, oh, he's fear, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets to do a coughing fit. And it turns out he had a heart attack, and he just died while his son was trapped down in the cellar. And nobody came to check on the house for, I believe it was like over a week. So finally cops came, they kicked in the door, saw him dead at his keyboard, and then pried up the cellar where Jonathan was kept and walked him out. And he's like, "Yeah, that's how it came to me. Anyway, thank you, Batman, for being a good guinea pig. I'm going to go get my scythe now." And then we see the same sort of thing happen again where he's like, activate wrist laser, but he's not wearing his glove. He doesn't have a wrist laser on. So at that point, he's like, all right, I'm going to have to use all my inner strength. And he focuses, and they both are doing this like back and forth monologue where it's all their internal thoughts, but they're doing like a back and forth here where it's like how they make the fear their own and they conquer it in their own ways and blah, blah, blah. And Batman ends up breaking free of the chain, and he's like, big mistake, Scarecrow, leaving me in the same room where my suit was. So, yeah, that's where it leaves off. Again, this is just, it doesn't so much have a plot as much as it has a thesis. Like, this entire arc, all that has really happened is Scarecrow kidnapped a kid, Batman found Scarecrow, and now he's wrapped up in one of Scarecrow's fear things. But, like, nothing has actually happened. And that's not inherently bad, but, like, you got to go into it knowing that. Knowing that you're not getting just, like, Batman fighting against some, oh no, my parents are alive again in front of me, but they're disappointed in my life choices. It's like, no, this is literally just, here's what Batman as like a thesis statement represents. And in that light, I think it's very well done. I think it's a decent look. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm the kind of guy who goes onto YouTube and I look at like here's what this scene means in this movie, and here's what the true meaning of this video game is, and stuff like that. So I've seen a bunch of videos that are, here's this deep dive into The Dark Knight, into Robert Pattinson's Batman, into blah, blah, blah. So like I've heard this exact same thing over and over and over again. So how it would have been back in 2012? Maybe different. But for me personally, having been in that deep dive, it just seems a little bit like, okay, yeah, but like I get it. Okay? Like I don't think that it's bad, but I do think that me personally, it's a bit repetitive at this point. So overall though, I do recognize that it is well crafted, so I will give it a 7. I think that it is very well drawn. I think that the give and take in the narration and using narration boxes to enforce, like, is Scarecrow talking or is it Batman to himself? In the craft wise, very well done. But as to what it's actually doing itself, could work for other people. Just a bit repetitive for me of like, yeah, no, we get it. This is how Batman thinks. Okay, moving on.